Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
Well, all right. Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. So today we're going to talk about stealth survival. I guess what I mean by that is when, what if the world turns to hell in a handbag and, you need to bug out, but maybe you can only get so far and you've been fighting off looters all day and you decide to give up your house and you end up where you're camping 100 feet in the woods, or you can only get so far. 100 feet's probably a stretch where you'd have trouble, but you know what I mean? Where you're worried about OPSEC or, people knowing where you are and what's going on and maybe wanting to steal your stuff. How do we hide our stuff? How do we, find somewhere to stay and cook and eat and, survive without alerting the neighbors, I guess is the plan here. So, Kevin, what do you got?
Well, I was looking into this a little bit, and I found all sorts of great videos on YouTube. Apparently, there's a big thing with people camping on medians and just off of public roads. And I always thought about that. Like, you look at, you're driving down the highway and you look at the center median, and it's so thick with brush that you can't see the cars on the other side. You could set up a little hammock in there someplace. And as long as you're not running a campfire in the middle of the night, you can almost be invisible in places like that. I thought it was interesting how many people do that sort of thing. Really? I didn't realize it was such a big deal. Yeah, there's videos all over YouTube about people hiding out in town parks and things like that. The truth is, if you go to certain places, those places are flooded with homeless people.
Yes.
And, honestly, if you're by yourself and you don't have your wife and kids and things like that with you, maybe hanging out in the homeless camps isn't the worst idea to stay seen but unseen.
Okay, now California has a whole population of that. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I get the impression that San Francisco and LA, it's like 90% of the population is homeless.
And I think that was the deal in Detroit too. They just didn't tell anybody there that they were homeless, so they didn't know. Is that's wrong? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think in Detroit and a lot of places like that were major metropolitan areas that, business just went left, and everybody was left unemployed with houses, and they just moved on to someplace else. You've got all those abandoned buildings. And the truth is, moving into one of those abandoned buildings is real easy, and getting somebody to move out of one of those abandoned buildings is almost impossible. Squatters' rights is still a thing in the U.S. I know there's
especially in
more
left-leaning cities. So.
That's right. Maybe they hate the libs have a one up on us on that.
Now, what's going on with that whole autonomous zone or whatever in Seattle? Are they taking over that whole 6 blocks, or they boot them out, or what happened?
No, they're still there, man. They've been there for a while. And honestly, as much as everybody trashes those people and talks shit because it's like a big fucking commune,
hippie commune, yeah.
Yeah, I do like the idea of the people taking over a spot that's owned by the people. You know what I mean? It's their spot. The police agreed not to go in there. They're guarding it with firearms. there's no crime going on in there right now because they're all trying to be hippies and shit.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's the sort of place where rape and assault and theft runs rampant pretty quick, man.
Yeah, that's how I'd imagine it. I know Woodstock back in the 60s, and then they had that Woodstock 94, and they did all those things. Every time, there was a large amount of rapes and different things that went on that, were known to the locals maybe, but not exactly in the mainstream press, because they like to paint the idea as something wonderful,
Yeah. Now, I actually went to the 50th anniversary last year.
Okay.
The Woodstock 50th anniversary at the original site, but it was only Santana and the Doobie Brothers, and it was only a couple hours. It wasn't a real hippie party, but
yeah, I thought that got canceled, so who knows?
Well, it got canceled except for Santana and the Doobie Brothers.
All right. Yeah. That sounds about right. The underwhelming event, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty underwhelming. Not a huge fan of Santana or the Doobie Brothers, but whatever.
Teach his own, right?
That's right.
So let's get into this. So, I don't know. I have like so many topics. I don't even know where to. All right, let's jump in deep here. So let's talk about shelter.
Right.
What can you do to have like a low profile shelter? Now, obviously your bright orange tent or, something like that is not going to be maybe your first choice. You have any recommendations on maybe some camping gear or something that might be easy to backpack in or something like that?
I'd say the
keep
best
a low profile.
Yeah, the best low profile camping setup is they sell those survival hammocks, and they're extremely inexpensive. You can get them.
I came up with the same thing.
$30 or $40. Yep. Yeah, and they have if you get a good one, they'll have a set up tarp that goes over top of you that keeps the rain off, keeps you off the ground. When in cold weather, you really don't want to be touching the ground because it just conducts all that cold right into your body. It sucks the heat right out of you.
One of the videos I watched, and it was exactly like you're saying, one of these guys camping out in the city parks and trying to keep the low profile had they called it a Hennessy hammock. And it was, that was the brand name. And they were somewhere, like I saw them for like $189 to like $289. And it depended how light and how, kind of the shape of it a little bit, where the prices varied. And that was just on Amazon. I didn't really search it out, more than that. But basically, like you said, it's it had a hammock with kind of a screen, like a little tent kind of triangle around you, and then a tarp that kind of went over the top to keep the rain off you. But
and it's all one piece, like one setup. You can hook it to a tree, and
and that's the thing. You can buy it in discrete colors that'll match the foliage in the forest. And then the guy set it up in like 2 minutes. It was like connecting in the trees and done, and it was just wrap around and throw a strap on it. And really super easy, super fast. And the thing is, when you're off the ground, you're not disturbing the earth. So the idea is now, I guess, I don't know. I was going to say, well, you're not going to disrupt the leaves or, lay down on the plants and things like that. But you probably do have to be careful to not leave marks in the trees from the ropes that you're putting on there. You could backfire where you have a little telltale high up. So just something to be aware of. At least fill it in with mud or something, if it does leave a mark when you go to, leave the next day. So just something to be aware of there. Now, other things would be like, true like off-grid shelters. But people, when they make their little lean-tos or things like that, what I see in the videos, because they're just worried about function, and I understand that, that's, you want quick, easy, efficient, and logical. But the norms that we have in the world are straight lines and, normal, like square cookie cutter. I'm constantly doing battle with my wife and how we set up our yard and stuff because I want things organized and in rows and straight.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, everything doesn't have to be in a line. It could be, and I'm like, yes, it does, But that's the thing. I mean, what you want to do is you kind of want to follow the lines of nature, and you'll see that
Right.
nature doesn't follow straight lines. It kind of moves and bends. But what you want to do is you want to look at your surroundings and kind of look at how things are there. Depending on the area you're in, the nature is going to take like a different shape and just kind of blend in and also follow the pattern. So one of the things when actually choosing a site, you want to look for something maybe kind of higher ground where you can see people coming, but you don't want to be like on a peak. So, halfway up a hillside, cool. Unless, of course, it's completely barren and all stone and you're right in the middle of it. That would be a little different. But being up and above things is good. But you don't want to break the line that's the natural, forest floor kind of thing. And, the whole edge there. So that's just something to be aware of. The next thing you're going to, so once you kind of get your shelter set up, I mean, there's a million things you can do to camouflage, and there's a lot of great blankets and tarps that are really dark and blend in, and there's stuff that's broken up like think like a ghillie suit. They have that material that's, patched cloth kind of thing that'll, break up everything around there. That kind of stuff can really make it easy, but actually using nature. But also keep in mind, if you break a bunch of branches and throw them on your thing to cover it up and make it look nice, all those broken branches, one, they're going to die in like 3 days. They're going to look brown and whatever. And I'm not saying that from the hippie point of view as much as I'm saying they're going to be really obvious that somebody was there.
Right.
So, if you can find stuff that's already dead and already, broken up and trees that are fallen and utilize that stuff. I know like you get in the pine forests and things like that. There's a lot of branches and things that you can use that are, kind of natural in there without disrupting living things. You can really kind of help maintain a more natural look, I guess, is what I'm going for. Another thing, when you're going to and from your campsite, you want to make sure you don't have like a worn path where you're going the same way kind of every time. And maybe, make a few sharp turns kind of thing in your, I was watching a movie and a guy was staying with a camp, and he had like a secret location and he was worried about kind of being followed or whatever. And just, yeah, that's cool that, I think in this case, like every night after everybody went to sleep, he was getting up and going off to his other place where he had hidden supplies and things that he was keeping from the group. And well, if you're easily followed, if somebody can follow you from 50 feet and be like, oh, he went in the bushes over there,
right,
then you're going to be in trouble and you're really running the risk of getting exposed. Whereas I think if you, hey, you go in the bushes over there, then once you're under the cover of the thicker foliage, you could go 1 to 3 different directions. Then, and things keep splitting. It makes it that for somebody to follow you, they have to kind of be right on you. And it makes it a little easier to spot them. And you can also make that, hey, I crossed this field and then whatever. So somebody following you close has to cross that field and is totally exposed. So they're going to wait a little bit and, just make it a little more difficult to be found.
Yeah.
A
lot of our guys down south don't really have to deal with snow, when you're leaving tracks in the snow, you don't want to keep tracking over the same spot. You want to leave as few tracks as possible. You don't want to be going in and out of your campsite, where somebody sees tracks back and forth and back and forth. But snow is one of those things also where you are limited on your coverage. All the leaves are down, all the trees are bare, and also it's a different type of camouflage. The brown and green isn't necessarily going to blend into the snowscape as well as white or brown would.
Right. And that's where stealing the wife's sheets off the bed, might
That's
pay
it.
off. I'm just saying,
Mhm.
Hey. So, all right, something to think about there. Next, let's talk about fire and cooking. So, you guys have heard us mention, and a lot of people in the survival community talk about the Dakota fire hole.
Right.
So let's talk about that. So what a Dakota fire hole is basically it's a fire that's in the ground so that you're not seeing flames, usually less smoke, and you're more discreet from others seeing it, and it usually burns pretty efficient and for a long time, so they're kind of cool. So the way you want to do that with the fire hole, let me check my notes here. I have some size requirements. Fire.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to dig a hole. It really depends on what you're trying to do. But if you're trying to heat you, and especially you and another person for all night long, you're going to want to dig a hole like 2 to 3 feet deep. You're going to want to make it the circle about a foot in diameter. But again, I mean, this is all relative. You could make it kind of any size you want. But figure 2 feet deep, a foot wide, and then about a foot away, you're going to want to go about a foot and a half deep. So, 3/4 or whatever, something like that, of the depth of the first hole. A foot away, you're going to dig a hole, and then you're going to connect the two underground. So the big hole is where you're going to build your fire. Now, you're going to kind of want to build like a traditional fire in there, and then the air is going to feed in from the second hole. Now, what you want to do is the main hole, the vent is on the upwind side.
Okay.
And what's going to happen with that? And now upwind is where the wind is coming from. All right. So downwind is the direction the wind is going. Upwind is where it's coming from. And if you're super worried about security and the smoke and that kind of thing, because smoke does smell and people are going to notice, you want to kind of have a tree as a backstop. So the tree would be on the downwind side, right?
Right.
So, the wind, the vent, the tree, and then you're kind of sheltered around that. Now, there are ways to build a fire with less smoke. Now, this is kind of weird and tricky. Now, smoke comes from the moisture and the impurities in the wood coming off it, right? That's what's going to give you all that heavy smoke that gets you into trouble, like burning leaves or things like that. It's usually because they're wet and that kind of thing. So in order to do a smokeless fire, now the Dakota fire hole is one, you're keeping the flame underground. The way that it vents keeps it from being like a roaring fire with giving you the big heavy smoke. But one of the things for a smokeless fire is to typically have the fuel be at the bottom and the kindling on top. I know that sounds a little contrary to, traditional fire building and what we know. And it's not the super most efficient way, but once you get it going, it's going to pay off more long term. So imagine if you did like, we'll say 3/4 inch sticks, make a base so a little air can get underneath. But again, remember we have air coming in from the side, right? So then put your main fuel for the fire, which are your bigger logs, your, heavier things that are maybe 4 inches, something like that in diameter, probably 3 to 5 inches, anywhere in there. Then the smaller kindling and stuff like that around the outer edge to kind of heat it up. And once you get it burning. So what's going to happen is once you're able to light the heavier logs and fuel like that, and the air coming in from the side is going to actually draw the fire down onto the logs and, help start that. But what's going to happen is as you burn the thicker stuff, the main fuel of the fire, what's going to happen is you have all that smaller kindling that you're going to keep feeding on top still burning, so that all the impurities have more of a chance to get burned up and kind of pass off. So that's going to give you a more smokeless fire. So I don't know. I'm sure that was too much detail and you guys probably didn't want to know, but I try and give you something that, is a little bit new and makes you think. What else? Let's talk about, cooking. Yeah. Go ahead.
Let me just touch on this. I'm going to say something controversial and shocking.
Uh-oh.
I know it upset my wife when I mentioned it, but you can actually camp without a fire. You don't even need one.
Are you sure that's camping?
You get those heat packs and keep yourself warm like that. They have real nice, when it comes to cooking, you can eat food cold. It's possible to do that.
All right.
You can open up a can of beans and just eat right out of the can.
I actually found something pretty freaking cool that matches up with that. Well, one, Kevin might tell you about his friend Sterno and cooking that way with the small little fire with very little smoke or smell. There's a company called Esbit that makes the Esbit folding pocket stove. Now, these have these little fuel pellets, and they're kind of, if you think of the fuel pellets, they're kind of like a one-time use. But,
right.
With what comes with it. But they're about $13, and I didn't research further into buying more replacement pellets. I'm sure that's got to be an option somewhere. But to buy the little metal folding stove and enough pellets to boil a couple things of water is about $13, and it's basically like tiny, like somewhere between 4 and 6 inches, and you just basically fold out 2 legs and you can set a little pot on there. But I watched a guy boil water. I think it came with 6 pellets of fuel, and I watched the guy light it with one match, and he was able to boil a pot of water with 2 pellets. So
right.
That's pretty awesome. And he's cooking, no fire. A small fire, but you know what I'm saying? You're not burning woods and
right. And it doesn't produce smoke. Those pellets don't really produce smoke. Same thing with those rocket stoves that burn on propane, the small propane tanks, and you just hook the stove right on top of the propane tank. And, they make them small enough that it's light enough that you can cook easily 3 meals on it and carry it in your pack at less than a pound or 2. Yeah.
I also saw, they had this really cool, I think the weight was going to push it over the edge for being the camper, but if you're setting up your secret compound, this guy had this Hellfire rocket stove for $90 on Amazon, and it was like cast iron. It was but a rocket stove, and I'm like, and you're probably 20 pounds you're carrying it in the woods, so it's not like in your bug out bag, you know what I'm saying? But if you're setting up a camp, it kind of seemed pretty cool where the guy was able to feed in the in the flames and have it come right out to a small cooking point kind of thing. And there were a lot of I don't know what type, probably stainless steel or something, but smaller, thinner ones that people had that folded up into the backpack and were reasonably lightweight. Possibilities are kind of endless on Amazon there. You can go down a rabbit hole and find all kinds of gear. We're not exactly gear junkies. I guess it depends on the thing, right? But so there's a lot of neat ways to cook. And like you said, having a fire, realistically, if you're that close to civilization, probably no fire at all is the way to go. But if it's a necessity, doing it in the ground like that is going to be a huge asset versus the other. It's going to definitely 100% cut down on the smoke. And then 2, it is definitely going to, keep it so they can't see the flames through the woods or that kind of thing and catch you. So that's,
and if you've ever been camping at like a campsite, at night, you can look around and see everybody's fire. It's really visible at night, and you want to be conscientious of that if you're trying to stay hidden.
Yeah, I think in the Navy they used to tell us, because of the flat water and no trees or anything to block anything out, no leaves and debris, you could see a lit cigarette from 14 miles, and that's kind of a big thing,
Yeah, so I actually could tell you a story about that. I remember when I was first in the Navy, first med cruise, first couple weeks, we were out in the Atlantic. And I would stand and watch in the back, and everybody's got, darkened ship, but there are other U.S. Navy ships out there around you. And I remember sitting on the fantail of the ship, and I could see this faint orange glow light up and then go out, and then light up and go out. And I could tell it was somebody smoking the cigarette, and I could see the ember lighting up and going out. And so I called in on the sound powered phones. You remember the sound powered phones, right?
Yeah.
I called up to the
now, did you have to turn the crank and it was like and then the growler? Isn't it the growler?
But they told me in the radar room, they told me that ship was 3 miles away, so I could see somebody smoking a cigarette from 3 miles, and I know you could see it, you could see further, it much further than that.
Yeah, so we actually, the ships now I'm sure even then were designed with, they had like a smoke break kind of thing. So what it is a break from the wind, but it would be the side of the ship, and there would be a secondary wall that would actually hide you.
Right.
So you could smoke and not, because God forbid we don't allow people to smoke. But then again, I think, isn't that the rule now? Don't they not smoke on ships? I don't really know.
I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping up to date.
Too out of touch. Vietnam was a long time ago, so who knows? I can't remember what.
I remember one of the older guys telling me that when he was a youngster working on the ship, one of his friends was just smoking a joint on the ship, and the chief went over and was like, "Dude, put that out." Like, it was not even a big deal. They gave zero shit. They were drinking on the ship. That used to be, remember the USS Constitution, the first U.S. Navy ship?
Yep.
I was reading the amount of times, every time they stopped in port, the supplies they would take in and take off. They took in 10 times as amount of rum as they did fresh water. They would stop in after being out for 3 weeks and not even take any new water in. They just pour the rum in the water, and it's good.
It's just right out of the tap,
a little
right?
drunk all the time. You never have a hangover.
That's smart. See, thinking outside the box.
That's right.
Another thing people think is, like there was that movie Into the Wild and different things. Oh, if I just bring this gun, I'll be able to hunt and whatever. But now realize that you're totally killing your OPSEC when you have a gun. Think of how far away you can hear a gunshot. And, a 22, it's better. Suppressed weapons, hey, these things are all going to come into play, but even, you can still hear them. They're not
even
silent.
Pellet guns are
have a noise.
Can be great for hunting small game, squirrels and things like that.
Pellet guns.
I have a friend that does a lot of poaching.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that sounds completely wrong. I don't even know you. Okay, go on.
But he does it on privately owned wildlife sanctuaries, and they're always out there trying to catch people. So the trick is you only fire once. If you miss, you're fucked. You can't take a second shot, because the second shot is how they're able to track down where you're at. The first shot you hear, but you never are really sure what direction it came from. But it's that second shot that gives you away.
All right.
For any of you guys out there, if you're planning on doing some poaching, that's just a little heads up.
And another tip for you poachers out there, you can take a deer with a headshot with a 22, no problem. I'm just saying. I read that in a book one time.
Yeah.
It just takes one shot in the head, and a deer will go down. I saw it in a movie. So anyway, moving right along, foraging becomes a thing when you're trying to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But again, covering so much ground, you're exposing yourself. But if you're grabbing while you're on the move, if you're able to recognize and look at plants, that's a big thing. Now, trapping is also silent, right? Bow hunting or crossbows, those are also silent. Fishing doesn't draw a lot of noise. People usually looking for you might be looking by the water, but if you can find a discreet location, that's up to you guys. A spear is also another way. Turns out you can actually do things.
I did see a guy take a bear with a spear one time in a video, but I don't feel like I will ever be capable of killing something with a spear. Every time I tried to throw a stick,
right? What was the movie where the guy had the spear that he made and the bear came at him and basically fell onto the spear? Like he planned it. He set it up,
right?
Like, and held it out as the bear's coming at him, and the bear kind of jumps down on him and ended up impaling himself.
Yeah, I remember the movie was Alec Baldwin and
was it that one? Yeah, and Kim Basinger or whatever, and and Hannibal.
Yeah, Hannibal.
What's
Hannibal
his name?
Anthony Hopkins.
Hannibal Lecter in there. Anthony Hopkins. I was just telling somebody at work about that movie because he was like, well, a lot of people don't have the practical knowledge. And I'm like, well, there was that one movie about that, with the practical knowledge versus book knowledge and whatever.
Right.
But, book knowledge versus no knowledge, it turns out is huge.
Yeah. Big difference.
Big difference versus no knowledge. Now, hands-on knowledge, actually starting a fire with a bow drill is very different than reading about starting a fire with a bow drill.
Yeah.
So
turns out starting a fire with a bow drill is way harder than it looks in any sort of the any of the movies or the TV shows. They cut out that 45 minutes in between where you keep, you just keep going with it and nothing happens.
Yeah, but also it's a skill that can be learned. And once you learn it and learn the proper technique, it's something you can apply, So keep it in mind. Another thing, too, when you're doing like the Dakota fire hole or setting up a tent, think about not disturbing the earth. So if your camp is going to be short term, what if you cut like the layer of the circle of topsoil and set it to the side so you can actually just drop it right back over the hole? Things like that. Being aware of how much you're disrupting your surroundings if you're pulling up camp and moving, frequently. Just, keep that in mind.
Right.
I guess not such a big deal.
You don't want to leave clear evidence that somebody was camping there if you're worried about being tracked or followed or looked for. Right.
Now, we've all seen that people go to the park and they leave their beer bottles and used condoms and whatever else on the ground. I don't know what it is with used condoms in camping, but apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
It's
I'm glad everybody's having safe sex. That's all.
Yeah, you're willing to give it to that? Yeah. All right.
So keep the chlamydia down on, down to just a few people.
I gotta say,
you don't have to share everything with everybody. Is all I'm saying.
An STD through the apocalypse doesn't sound like something that you'd really want.
Yeah, if you can go to the doctor and get a penicillin shot, it's not such a big worry. But when you can't, man, those crabs can really be uncomfortable.
Just disturbing. So I don't know, but that's basically, I just wanted you guys to kind of think about it and get an idea of, how to be a little more discreet, some ways to kind of, not get caught if you're running away or looking for something. And I'm talking about kind of a apocalypse, shit hits the fan. I know we never thought the apocalypse was going to come, but now it's looking more and more like it everywhere I turn,
Yeah, every day, right?
Maybe I could see that happening. If you told somebody, oh, you're going to be not allowed to go to work or whatever, and that'll go on for months, or, you won't be able to go to the stores, or restaurants will just close down, and all of a sudden your livelihood is shut down. They would be like, oh, that's ridiculous. This is America. Nothing could happen that could do that. And then, well, I guess something could, but you know, teach his own, right? Actually, to my point to that, I was down at the gas station the other day, and they had a big sign out front that said "free roll of toilet paper with every fill up."
Nice.
So I was like, "Hey, they got it going down there."
Yeah. Now, if you guys really want to look into somebody that pulled off the hiding out in the woods through FBI manhunts and stuff, Eric Rudolph was he was the Olympic bomber. Do you remember him?
So he was up in the Appalachian Trail, is that right?
Right. And he hid out there for 5 years, just living in the woods, not being seen, not being found. And they had a whole FBI search teams with dogs out there looking for him, and they never found his ass. Yeah. The only reason they found him is 5 years after he went missing. Everyone thought he was dead. Everyone thought, he went to somebody to hide out at their house, and they ended up killing him and hiding his body so that, he couldn't be found. But they did eventually find him. Police got a call from somebody rummaging through a dumpster behind a grocery store. And they pulled up on him. And first he ran and tried to climb over a fence. And then he just was like, fuck it. And climbed back down and said, yeah, you got me. But 5 years they looked for him and never found him. And if he had just climbed up over the fence and ran off, they probably would have been like, fuck it. Homeless guy's gone now. And left.
No, they got rid of him. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, the isolation and stuff can really get to a person. You got to think about the quality of life and kind of life you want to lead. I always wondered about, if that would be the place to go, is those long trails. Because they are set up and there is water and stuff like that. And a lot of the amenities are solar, or, as far as, you're going to get
they have a lot of lean-tos along the way
without electricity and things like that. And they do have shelters. I just wonder how many people have that same idea. I did read one of those prepper books on a guy ended up, his car broke down in somewhere, and he was trying to get back to Virginia and ended up, going through the whole Appalachian Trail heading back. And it's the Appalachian down there through North Carolina and Virginia. Is that right?
Yeah.
I have the right one in my head.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound too crazy. All right. I don't know. Kevin's the big knows every freaking hiking trail in America, Now, so you were saying some of the things that might just push you to moving out to the woods. You said you had some concerns that the police are not really backing down. They're still kind of out of control. I see that the cops are, it seems like they're doubling down on asshole activity. Like, hey, maybe if we just keep bullying everybody, they'll realize that it's okay to be bullied. I'm not really sure what their logic is on this one.
Yeah, it seems like all the protests on police brutality, the cops are like, you know what we ought to do? Some police brutality. We'll break this protest right up.
We'll show them.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are really hating on the Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all that sort of shit. But honestly, I fully support peaceful protests. Fully. But I also support, when you speak out about something over and over again and nothing changes, sometimes you got to fuck shit up.
I'm not understand why people get upset, right?
Stealing,
there's no doubt.
Yeah, stealing from stores and shit like that. You're not protesting. You're just taking advantage of a situation and stealing shit. There's a big difference between the two. But when they're throwing fucking tear gas at you, and like they did in Washington D.C., and you're peacefully protesting, and they're throwing tear gas and flashbangs at you, you kind of have an obligation to fucking stand up for yourself. I don't have any problem with that. Everybody's losing their fucking minds about it.
Yeah.
But the truth is, that's what they want. They want you to lose your fucking mind. They want you to pay attention to what's going on. So whatever. Fuck shit all you want. I don't have any problem with what's going on. And everyone's I hear all this shit about, Antifa is moving out to the rural communities and this shit and that shit. They're not. You settle down. If somebody tries to break into your house to force anti-fascism on you, shoot them in the face. That's not a big deal.
I would do that. Yeah.
It's not a big deal. You don't have to tolerate bullshit on your property. But you also don't have to fucking worry about them coming out to your log cabin in the woods, because they're not gonna. They don't give a shit about you. That's just that. What I did want to talk about, though, is the Breonna Taylor case.
Okay.
That was the no-knock warrant in, I think that was in Kentucky, Louisville.
Okay.
And basically, they were looking for somebody. I think everybody's heard this story. They were looking for somebody that had already been captured and was already in custody. And he lived in an apartment a couple of years prior. So they went to that apartment at 1:30 in the morning. They kicked in the door. The guy that lived there woke up out of a dead sleep, realized somebody had kicked the door in. Now, the police said they shouted police, but everybody in all the apartments around them said they heard the door get kicked in and they heard the gunfire, but they never heard anyone say police.
Right.
So,
and even so, you know what? If you come and stand outside my front door at 2:30 in the morning and yell police and then kick the door, I don't know that I'm going to register all that while I'm asleep and whatever. Who knows? Maybe I had a few beers the night before and whatever. I just know somebody kicked in my door and is coming up my stairs or coming in, whatever.
Right.
It's going to bring you to attention.
Shit's real. Shit just got real. And what are you going to do about it? So the guy that lived there was a legal gun owner, legally owned his firearm. People kicked in his door at 1:30 in the morning. He woke up out of a dead sleep and fired and hit one of the officers. So the officers returned fire, 20 rounds. They fired 20 rounds and didn't hit the person they were trying to hit one time. 0% accuracy. They carry a firearm for a living and couldn't hit in 20 rounds their fucking target. They did kill somebody else. They shot somebody who was sleeping in a different bedroom 8 times.
Well, sure.
When was the last time you used your firearm at a fucking when was your last fucking training? When was the last time you practiced firing? Because it seems to me like it was never. You should not be allowed to carry a firearm around with you if you can't hit your target with 20 rounds. 0% accuracy. You hit the wrong goddamn person too, which is even worse. New York City, about 5 years ago, there was a guy that was having a schizophrenic break, and he was just going crazy, running in and out of traffic, losing his goddamn mind. Cops show up, shot at him 9 times, missed him, but managed to kill 2 other pedestrians. Now the guy that had that mental break is charged with manslaughter because the cops didn't know what the fuck they were doing with their guns.
Yeah, no, it's
not the crazy person's fault. It's the cop's fault for shooting the wrong goddamn people.
Yeah, that sounds accurate to me. Yeah, no, it's all the time. There's that stupid untrained cop with that Daniel Shaver.
Mm-hmm.
Is that his name? Yeah, Daniel Shaver was the one in the hotel. And now I know you looked into that story, maybe even a little more than I did. And that's the one where the guy, maybe they got a noise complaint or something, and the cops come in and they're like, get on the ground and, get on your knees, crawl to me, but keep your hands in the air. And the guy's like, I can't crawl and keep my hands in the air. I don't care if you fall on your face. Don't let your hands touch, that one.
Right.
And it was ridiculous. But my question is, why the hell did cops have an AR-15 in a hotel? In the hallway. Exactly. You're like, oh, there's the noise complaint. Better grab the AR. I'm heading in.
Yeah, better get high-powered rifles for this.
Shit could get real.
This building that is heavily populated.
Walls.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Paper-thin walls, right.
We've all been in a hotel and heard the person in the next room fucking. Every one of us has dealt with that situation. A bullet will run right through drywall. That's all that's between those walls.
I just can't even make sense or comprehend these things, So my thought is, all right, I know we got some cops that, I'm sure like at least 2 of you are still listening to us. And I know we actually used to have a pretty big cop audience. Well, come on, man. Just work on the shooting. I had a buddy who's a police sergeant and actually, they were going to make him the chief, and then he decided to retire because things were turning ugly in the world. But anyway, this guy goes to the range and shoots like once a year. Mm-hmm. The rest of us are shooting way more than that. You got to step up your game. Now, I agree. There are some decent guys out there, and there are guys who really care. And I was having a debate at work, because I'm like, I don't even understand. If I see 50 people all, jackbooted thugs, cops with freaking big shields and masks, and they're just pushing over people and whatever, if not one of them stops to help and pick up somebody who gets hurt, or, I understand it gets out of control and it's chaos and it's hard to handle, but you got to do the right thing. And if there's 50 of you and not one of you is doing the right thing, it looks bad. That's just, it's not going to help things. Now it
makes the protesters point for them.
Right. Exactly. There are communities where cops are doing the right thing and they're going out with the people and saying, hey, you know what? You guys have a valid point, and we're here to stand with you and we want to work with you. And there are communities that are doing it right, and that are, and the media seems to want to spread the hate and, make it like it's only bad and that's all we see, and it gets everybody riled up, and I understand why you'd be concerned. So, I understand both sides of the picture, and I also know that it's hard to stand up to your other cops, and you're kind of like, well, if I say something and report, oh, I saw this guy do something bad, my chain of command doesn't care. They're just like, yeah, shut up, we don't care. And, that's how things are. If you're the problem, we'll get rid of you. If you don't like your job, move on. So I understand that kind of thing happens. And maybe it's better that you stay in your job and, you keep your mouth shut, but you're at least one good guy out there doing the right thing who's not going to shoot my dog. So, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I understand the other point of view, but just be aware of how it looks. And seriously, freaking learn to shoot. I don't understand. I think I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think it was in the podcast, but, about how New York City, they were saying that a cop is more likely to be shot by another cop than.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And they said like in all of 2019, every cop getting shot was by another cop. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That can't be true. And then when I started Googling it, I kept saying, oh, look, here a cop got shot. And then you read the article and you're like, oh, well, it sounds like it could have been a friendly fire incident. Yeah. But they're always like discreet about how they say it. So I'm not saying that it's only that happens. I'm just saying it's something that does happen, and maybe step up your game a little bit. So, whatever. And if you want to hate us, I understand. Turns out it's just your turn to get picked on if you're a cop, because we've been picking on everybody since way back. I mean, Kevin's offended just about everybody.
Yeah. I don't know if I've left anybody out, but I'm going to keep working on this.
Just hang in there. We'll get to you.
I'm going to keep being as offensive as possible, and I don't want anyone to feel left out, but I'll get to you.
All right. So,
and I do also want to say, I don't hate cops. I just think that there are a lot of fucking assholes that become cops, just like there are a lot of assholes in every profession. It's just most professions don't have guns and batons.
Yeah. It turns out my credibility at work comes from one of my buddies. Oh, don't get mad at Chuck because, he's hated cops since way back. And I'm like, thanks. This isn't new for him. He's already expressed concerns. Usually it's because we're having big discussions about the ATF and dog shooting. But, you know how it goes. So if you do appreciate us and you want to support what we're doing, you guys could head over to patreon.com/preppingbadass and maybe sign up to donate like $1 a month and take care of us. Now, as little as $1 a month will actually get you one of those cool Prepping Badass patches. Mm-hmm. And maybe we'll get around to sending it out in the near future. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. Maybe.
Kevin, I know, has some cool new patches that we have available, and we are going to try and make those available for purchase. I know you guys have been asking. He says people are getting antsy. I'm trying to figure out a way to do it. I just haven't I mean, really, you just need to send us all your money and we'll send you something. I mean, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
You send
Sign
enough
up
cash,
on Patreon and we'll send you a patch. Yep.
Yeah, that's how it's going to work at least. All right. So
Yeah.
we'll do with that. You're at least going to get the Prepping Badass with $1. And if you go over $1, you probably get some more cool shit. You know, that's how it works. Also, I don't know if you guys have ever heard us mention Tac Pack. They basically put together some tactical gear usually for the AR-15 kind of guy, because a lot of it is like AR-15 parts and things like that. And what they do is they have a subscription where you send in like $49.95 a month, and they send you a bunch of gear. And what they do is, because they buy in bulk and send it out to everybody, they're able to get like $100 worth of gear to send to you for that $50 a month. And they just find the best deals and put together some cool shit that you never thought of. If you use the code BADASS, turns out they will hook you up with some extra special cool stuff. So something to think about. If you have questions or concerns or want to tell Kevin about how he's wrong about his cop-hating ways, then you should shoot us an email at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
The Survival and Basic Badass podcast is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.